Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the Durham Student YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between studying at A-level and at university in your first year. So sort of to get an idea of what the difference in your study habits is going to need to be, the intensity of it. So I'm just going to cover a few different things and I'll launch straight into that. The first thing that could be quite different is your contact hours, and this does depend on what degree you're going to be studying. So for me, studying business management and marketing, I do about 10 contact hours on average per week. It can be like as low as 6 contact hours, and it depends on like your seminars and your lectures, which I'll get into in a moment. But then if you're studying a science, you might have up to like 20-25 hours, so it can vary. I know in school the highest you'd have is 25, at least in the schools I went to. I know other schools might be different, but like the highest I'd ever have would be 25 hours a week, and in A levels it was about 15 hours for me. And so depending on what sort of school you've gone to, you may have had more or less contact time, but for me it was quite a reduction in the number of contact hours given like the increase in the amount of time you should probably spend studying. So what I've always been told is you should study about 40 hours a week at uni, just the same as a normal working week, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I know that doesn't work for everybody. Some people prefer to get up later, some people like to study on the weekends, and it really varies. But for me, I try and aim for this, even though I couldn't always kind of manage that, but that meant that I could have a bit of a chiller weekend. But this does mean that there's a lot of independent study given the lower amount of contact hours, and for my degree this meant quite a lot of independent reading, and you'd have to kind of like decide what you were going to do yourself. And that's really different to A levels, because you're quite often, even though your contact hours maybe are 15 hours a week, you're told what else to do, you know. You're told to revise for a particular exam, you're told you have this homework or that homework, and at uni it's not necessarily going to be like that. For some things, yes, it will be kind of dictated to you what you need to do. So for example, if you have seminars, you might be told that you need to prepare, you know, a certain thing for the seminar. So there might be some questions to do, there might be videos to watch. It depends what sort of degree you are doing, but there'll be different sorts of reading to do to prepare for seminars, and then this can vary in the length of time you need to spend on that. So I know for some people it could be like 4 or 5 hour seminar prep. That could be a lot, and like most of your reading work could be for your seminars as opposed to your lectures, whereas for me, I don't think I ever spent more than 2 hours on a seminar prep. But that just does vary from degree to degree, and this is also like depending on the style of teaching. So for me, the way it works would be I'd have 6 lectures a week, so 1 hour per module. This is an average like for first year, and then you'd have 1 hour of seminar every 2 weeks. For some you'd have 2, but it'd generally be like 6 hours of lectures a week and 3 hours of seminars a week, although this could vary depending on which weeks you had your seminars on. For lectures then, the style of work you'd have to do could be pre-reading for a lecture. So this could be like reading around to make sure you understand it. Some lecturers might tell you, okay, this chapter of a textbook, or you know, these journal articles, but that's not necessarily always the same. For some classes it's just like you just need to be ready, and that can be quite different to what you're used to at A level, because you kind of just need to figure that out off your own back. But there are a number of tools you can do use for this. For degrees like mine, you are probably told what textbooks you should buy for each module beforehand, or you can borrow these from the library. Depending on what course you do, there's usually a fair number of copies of the core textbooks in the library. I know for business we maybe have like 20 copies, and whilst there are a lot of people, you'll find that not everybody is using these at the same time, and a lot of people do have their own copies. And there are also second-hand like book schemes that you can buy your textbooks from in Durham. So you then kind of need to figure out how much reading you're going to do to prepare, and what a lot of lecturers do is they upload their slides in advance of the lectures, and this is really useful if they do, and if they don't, you can maybe talk to them and ask them if that would be something they'd be willing to do. And for me, what I would do was I would get up the slides before the lecture, I'd copy down all the headings, and then I'd make my like textbook notes or journal notes under those headings, so that when I went into the lecture I was prepared. Once you settle into it, you kind of have to make that independent decision of how the studying works best for you. So for some of my modules, trying to do pre-reading beforehand wouldn't work. I had a module in first year, financial information for managers, and I didn't understand finances, and if I read the textbook beforehand, I didn't get very much out of it, and it was a bit of a waste of my time. Whereas if I would go to the lecture for that subject first and then read the textbook afterwards, I could have it explained to me, start to gain an understanding, and then consolidate that with the textbook. So you have to make those independent decisions of how it works best for you. And some lecturers will tell you need to read before a lecture, some will recommend to do it after. You kind of have to make that decision of what works best for you, because it's not prescribed. Nobody's going to be checking that you've done it, and you just need to keep doing that, because if you don't, when you get to exams at the end of the year, you are going to struggle. So you just kind of need to build that for yourself. Obviously, when you're at university, you're going to be balancing all of these things with a lot of other responsibilities as well. So whilst maybe you'll be living in a catered college in your first year, that's not the same for everyone. So if you're having to cook and clean and things, this could be a lot to balance, as well as obviously meeting new people, and maybe it's the first time that you've had the chance to go out on evenings, have a bit of a nightlife, and so you kind of need to manage that with being able to get up for your studies. And as I said, you don't have to necessarily get up for 9 AM every day if you don't have classes, but you do need to make sure that you kind of make this work for you. And that level of responsibility can be difficult, because it is such a difference from probably when you're at A levels. If you just would go home to your family, you'd maybe help cook and stuff, but you wouldn't have as many responsibilities as you do when you get to uni. So it can be quite a step up and a challenge, but I do think this change is really manageable. I was so scared before moving to university about like the different styles of teaching, the different styles of learning. Would I be able to like manage all that different stuff? I know, for example, if you're doing like an English degree, there can be so much reading to do, but it's about finding something that works for you, and you won't in the first few weeks. When I was in my first year, for the first 5 weeks of term, I felt absolutely lost, and I was trying to do the reading in a way that just didn't work for me. And at week 5, I kind of was like, okay, I don't have to just keep going and doing things in the same style. You need to be open to that change. So I was really worried that, well, now I've been doing things a certain way, I don't have the time to change how I do it, and it's going to make my notes inconsistent. And actually I made the decision that, you know what, I've been here 5 weeks now, and I've learned a lot of things, and I've seen how a lot of other people are doing it as well. And this is the thing, it's worth discussing with your peers and your course mates how they're approaching things, and then tailoring what you do, because you won't figure it out straight away, because it's not that straightforward, and it's a learning curve, and you need to be open to learning the differences. But I will tell you that it is really manageable, and you will figure it out as you go along, and it's nothing to be scared of. Like, nobody knows how to do all those things before they arrive, and you just kind of figure it out as you go along, and trust me, you can do it. I hope this has been helpful. I know it's a very brief overview of all these things. If you have any more specific questions, just comment them below and we can always tackle them in another video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!